Hello and welcome to Found in Translation, a weekly-ish exploration of one fellow's translation of the Christian scriptures, one chapter at a time. I'm Brandon Rhodes, and across the internet from me is the translator himself, Brandon Johnson. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
And our guest co-host today is Jenna DeWitt with she, her pronouns. Jenna is a writer, editor, and resource curator working primarily in queer Christian spaces and centering aromanticism and asexuality. You can find her work at invisiblecakesociety.com, which is my favorite URL I have read ever on a podcast. I love it. Or on Substack, Threads, or BlueSky. Jenna, thanks for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here and talking through Matthew chapter 23. But before we get to that, I want to ask, just to kind of get to know you a bit more, a couple questions to start. First of all, what's got your heart and mind abuzz? What's getting you fired up and energized these days?
Yeah, well, talking about the queer Christian stuff is we just had Pride, and there are so many cool things going on in my area, and they have not been in the past. This has not been an area that has a lot of Pride organizations or events or things. And there were so many this year, I couldn't go to all of them. So that was amazing that a lot of allies are speaking up. A lot of queer people are getting activated to host things, whether it's, a knitting group or a journaling group or just a reading club. There's a silent book club where they just sit in a cafe and read quietly together. You don't have to,
that's my jam.
If you would like to be on a corner with a bullhorn, there are those opportunities as well. So whether you want to be loud or drink till midnight or, past midnight, I guess I'm old, so I go to bed. But if you want to go to a party or something, there are those things for you. But then there is also the more quieter or introverted or, those kind of groups as well. And there's teenage groups and senior citizens walking together and all sorts of things. So I've been very excited that I'm seeing more and more people get activated in an area of interest and the ways that feel really natural to them. And they're not having to conform to queer people dress like this. And we don't wear rainbows. And real queer people, it was okay, well, let's leave real queer people behind. And let's just do what actually fits us and the intersections of our identity, whether it's your race or culture or language or ability. Now we are in July, so it is Disability Pride Awareness Month. So we've got all the intersections and everybody coming together for a bigger, more beautiful, diverse community. So very cool.
Awesome.
Love it.
What's it been like bringing your insight and experience around Arrow and Ace stuff in Pride this year?
Yeah, sometimes it can be really frustrating. So for example, NPR's Life Kit, one of my favorite podcasts, love it. But they did an episode about celibacy that's not religiously motivated. So I thought that was really interesting that you would do an episode about non-religious celibacy and not include a single asexual person. So you didn't at any point say, hey, this might not be just temporary for your own wellness or for your own self-exploration or for your own, relationships or whatever. And you might actually decide that you like it and that sexual liberation for you includes liberation from the compulsory sexuality that says you have to have this, or in romance, or, that side too. So that's a really frustrating thing, is when queer organizations or leaders or just society in general that's trying to be sex positive and liberatory and everything, progressive, still kind of fall back into this, but you have to have this. This is what makes you human. This is what makes you. And we already got that from purity culture that said you have to be waiting for a spouse or else you're broken, whatever. If you're not attracted to the opposite gender, then whatever. And then you get the mainstream society, what we call a modern normativity, that comes in and just repeats the same pattern over and over again. It says if you're not sleeping with somebody, you must be broken. Oh my gosh, if you haven't slept with someone in a year, that's something's wrong with you. You need help. And it's okay, but what if they just don't want to? That's what liberation is. Liberation is about choice and consent, not just choice and consent for a little bit. You get a day pass, but no, that's not what consent is. Like, it's not like you get a permission slip to skip school, So I think people really need to center the voices of aromanticism and asexuality more, particularly those of us who have really complicated identities. Like, I'm cis, but my gender is really affected by my asexual identity and my aromantic identity. And, I'm sapphic as well. I really like girls, but like having a girlfriend is really complicated because it's so rare that I do experience attraction. But when I do, it's to girls. But it's like trying to find a girl who understands that and, is in that culture and everything. It's really complicated for us. But with that, we've had to create a lot of really cool terms and identities and concepts that can bring liberation to pretty much everybody, even if you do experience attraction. So those are kind of some of the things that I really hope more aromantic and asexual voices in queer spaces, whether it's in the church or whether it's just in broader society or in bigger LGBTQ groups. I think that we could bring a lot to the conversation that might actually be really helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you pushing people. Hey, don't forget, don't stop there. Like, let's include all of it here. Yeah.
All right. Next question. Totally different direction. Well, it overlaps. What's your relationship with the Bible been like?
Absolutely. So it's interesting, growing up, I had a children's Bible like everyone else. And in third grade, they give you like your own Bible, and that's so special. And then, the Sunday school class where we had to find a Bible passage, and the first one to find the Bible passage got a Jolly Rancher, and you have to memorize all the books of the Bible and all that. But I grew up United Methodist, and so that was kind of it. We didn't do like Bible drills or all the Awana and like stickers and things. I mean, we pretty much were just like, it is, history and poetry and all the genres that are appropriate and good, but there wasn't a lot of just really emphasis on having the Bible be the center of everything, which was good and healthy, but then also kind of put me at a disadvantage academically, because my first year at Baylor, I went to Baylor University for journalism, and then got a music minor, which is a whole other deal. So it's kind of only relevant in my life when it's like two truths and a lie, So that's the impact that a music minor has on your life. But everyone has to do a semester of Christian scriptures and a semester of church history. And that was really helpful and beneficial. But I was going into this class being like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, these were prophets? And what was going on in that time? So it's like I had very little like understanding of the general concept of the Bible and what was going on in a lot of these, like, oh, he was a prophet during this time, and that was during the exile, and this is why that was important. So I've had to do a lot of catch-up work as an adult, and Baylor was very helpful for that, and actually kind of kickstarted the deconstruction process before it ever really needed to start, because they were like, we're going to take down everything you think you know about the Bible, and we're going to build it back up from, actually, we're not sure if this passage was in the original, and actually, this has been mistranslated, and actually, and so there was a lot of like just almost Pete N style kind of Bible study that got just like really a good foundation for me to be able to question things. Unfortunately, I kind of veered off a bit into a Bethel Light kind of church, or like Hillsong or IHOP, if you're familiar with those kind of churches. It was a bit like that. And I spent a little time deviating off of the good, healthy Methodist spirituality and into something bad, which that's a whole other thing of like, why on earth would I do that? But after a while at Baylor, like even the just NIV Bible became really academic to me. It wasn't necessarily about like having a spiritual life. It was more about having a text to have facts about. And so if I was going to have any sort of spiritual life, I needed to change. And so I got a hot pink The Message version of the Bible. Hot pink remix, Message remix. And so Eugene Peterson, that was great. But Eugene wrote these very touching introductions, especially to the prophets. And reading through those was really meaningful to me about what does it mean to be somebody who has to go against the grain and to stand out, and to, he may not have said this at the time, but queer. What does it mean to queer the Bible? And now I have that vocabulary and that mindset and that hermeneutic. But at the time, it was kind of laying this foundation for reading, Isaiah and Ezekiel and all these things. It was like, you have to sometimes go against what all the popular religion is. And that took a lot of just really hard hitting rock bottom. So I had a really difficult relationship with the Bible after college because of just all of the dark deconstruction, mental illness, like everything that was going on there. And then it became like about, well, you just memorize this verse. If you memorize this scripture verse, then your depression will go away. And things like that. And it was like,
God.
No, it's just not good. So that's not how this works. Folks. Yes, prayer does not help. Like that, that's not it. So it's kind of been an array of, studying it and then having the more inspirational part, but then also not going so far into that you think you don't need other things. So coming home to Methodism has been really healthy for me because we have something called the Wesleyan quadrilateral. This is a really hard word to say in my Texan accent. And we have, at the basis, one of the number one is scripture. But then how do you interpret scripture? Being reason and tradition and the experience of the Holy Spirit within you. So having all of those is such a healthier hermeneutic than having that sola scriptura kind of stuff that was never part of my growing up year. Like we didn't have illiteracy, the Bible being, inerrant and all the stuff. So yeah, my biblical literacy was a little low as far as like understanding it, but also the theology of what the Bible is was so much healthier than putting it as the fourth member of the Trinity. So there was a lot to deconstruct from, but a lot of it looked really different than the evangelicals who were taught to literally like worship the Bible as perfect and God's exact word that was handed down from on high, and we weren't taught that, but then we also kind of weren't taught what it really was too. So that's a little bit of a different story than you might normally get from a podcast guest, but it's taken a wandering path.
Which are the most fun, right?
Yeah. I serve with the United Methodists up here in the Oregon Idaho Conference, and that has been one of the most refreshing things about the tradition is so many fewer hang-ups for those who grew up in that tradition or have spent the bulk of their formative years in the Methodist Church. Is like it hasn't been as easily like invaded by the inerrancy fetish, like all these weird things from evangelicalism that still will creep into. It feels like evangelicalism is this like mind virus that can make its way into anything, but it's nice to find little places where it doesn't quite make its way through. And the quadrilateral is like good religious immune system supports to help prevent that infection from developing.
Exactly. And that's really what I needed more of, I think, growing up in the Methodist Church, like that tradition was just more knowledge of it and what it was and putting more boundaries out there. So when I hear people who have deconstructed from evangelicalism who are kind of more like, no, we need to say everybody's a Christian and we need to like love and accept everybody and, whatever. And I'm like, okay, yes, but paradox of tolerance means like you have to exclude people at some point and say, this is what we believe. And if you don't, that's okay. And like, we're for you and we're happy to help you find somewhere that fits, but that is not us. And so I think that has been a really heartbreaking thing about the Global Methodists spinning off to specifically have a non-affirming denomination is, on the one hand, I have no problem with that because it's like, get out, don't let the door hit you at this point. But all of the lying and manipulation and the evangelicalism that tried to really infect the church from a long way, it was really against a lot of who we are and why we do what we do. And we have this word called connectionalism. We spell with an X. Because we're all connected and we're all like, it's part of one big thing. And inclusion is kind of built into the whole like mentality. So a lot of that was very, very disappointing because it felt like if anybody was set up to really be the vanguards of inclusion and diversity and equity and all of that, we really should have been that and dropped the ball pretty severely from the 1970s on, especially. So we had opportunities to become affirming as early as the 70s. Like it was like, okay, we have integrated churches, like desegregation, like it's all gone. Like now we're time to be affirming. And they put in language explicitly. That was when they started. They put in the language saying, hey, we already have queer pastors and we already have queer people, and we don't want that to be a thing anymore. And so that kind of feels different than, for example, the Southern Baptist Convention.
Yes.
Yeah, but not too much, because they also had women pastors and then put in a thing saying, oh no, we don't have women pastors in this church. And so, we've all kind of had to go through this conservative swing at different eras in our history. But yeah, it really seems like Wesleyan theology is pretty well set up to be a positive force for change and social justice in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot
coming home.
to be grateful
imperfect as it is.
Yeah.
As
Sure.
imperfect as it is, we have a lot of dirty laundry. I'm certainly not saying it's a good thing, and I don't blame anyone who leaves for sure. But I do encourage people who are looking for an affirming church or who are looking for something that they want to make better. Don't just like stay in a non-affirming or a bad place because you think, oh, well, the affirming spaces have it all figured out. They don't need me there. I'm needed over here. And it's like, well, that may be true, but like we are also dying. And so literally dying. Like people in my church who are very beloved are just literally reaching old age and passing away. And that's natural and normal and part of life. But also we need younger generations to come and take on the work of being the force of change and liberation in the world. And it doesn't just happen by accident, and it doesn't just happen on its own. Right. We have to have people who are willing to come and help us make it happen. So I not to get too much of my soapbox here and take up too much of our time, but that's kind of why I stay and why I'm in a tradition that has had such public divorce and dirty laundry and a lot of bad press recently. So I still think it's it's the mass movement of people that can really make change. And I think we have enough of that it's worth joining the effort in an effort to make the change.
Love that.
Speaking of airing dirty laundry, Jesus does a whole bunch of that in this chapter.
Yes,
true.
I'll say I am making a bit of a subtle segue into our Matthew 23. So y'all go ahead and read that before I give away too many spoilers. Spoiler alert over here. So please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody listening and watching, as with all episodes this season, we are doing this with a particular focus, reading Matthew from a context of authoritarianism as a text against authoritarianism and written under imperial occupation among neighbors still trying to detangle themselves from domination games. So if you haven't had a chance to read Brandon's translation, the Liberation and Inclusion translation, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to have it up on the screen. And if you're listening, there is going to be a link in the episode notes to read Matthew chapter 23. So encourage you to hit pause and take your time reading it, and don't sleep on the footnotes. What ChatGPT told Brandon are often mini essays. They often are, and that is so sick. There's a lot of great nerdery in there that will deepen your reading as well as this conversation. So hit pause, give it a read. All right, everybody, welcome back. Before we dive into this, what are any preliminaries that'd be worth exploring here before we read through Jesus's angriest stretch?
Yeah, what comes to mind immediately for me is the big risk of some serious anti-Semitism here. Talking about everyone is about calling the Pharisees names a little bit here, and then going toward the end, especially your ancestors killed the prophets and they're going to keep doing stuff like that. And it's who's you? And what are we talking about here? And I think we need to say over and over again, blanket statements about the Pharisees are the bad guys. Modern Jews are going to hear that as Jews are the bad guys, because modern Judaism grew up out of the Pharisee tradition. So it's really, I mean, there are examples in the New Testament of Pharisees getting it and being on board. And like, so it's not all Pharisees everywhere. There's a lot of people, scholars, who say that Jesus may himself have been considered a Pharisee. It was the grassroots movement of the Jewish tradition at the time. They were seen as like the voice, the spiritual voice of the people at the time. So clearly Jesus has some disagreements with at least some of them, some serious disagreements. But it's not to say that this is a condemnation of Judaism or Pharisaism altogether. And that's really important to be said, I think.
Yeah, I like how you have in this translation, it starts out with the Bible scholars. And it's like, okay, we could say it in a more pejorative way, like the Theo bros or whatever. But like, it really is just like the people, and I am guilty of this as well. You know, I was listening again to the the clobber passages from Queer Theology last night. And they were saying like, each one of these clobber passages actually has a call to action we can't ignore. We can't just say, oh, these are about those people. And I think that's a really big temptation with Matthew 23 as well, is that we see like, oh, those people are doing that. But it's like, God, how often am I this person as a outspoken Christian, as a public Christian, as somebody who has worked in ministry and nonprofit media and religious journalism. And so there can be a temptation to say like, those people are like, those Theo bros are out there doing this, and it's megachurch pastors that are the problem. But while I think that's a little bit more accurate, obviously lots more accurate than saying it's about Jewish people, because that's not the context we're talking about here. And we're talking about who are the leaders in your tradition or in your religion, and what are they actually doing that aligns with what they're saying? Because from the very beginning, we're saying, pay attention to what they tell you and do it. So it's not that they were necessarily saying bad things or doing bad things. It's that there's no application here. They're just, putting all of this stuff on them and not following through, help it. Like, it's not empathetic. Like, the root of all this has to be love. And I absolutely deserve to be called out on that just as much as anybody, any megachurch pastor or Theo bro on the internet. So yeah, absolutely. I feel like that the best way to interpret this, definitely not like Jewish people or Jewish leaders. It's like, who are the people in Jesus's tradition that he's speaking to are the religious leaders, and that could very well be analogous to us in the ways that we are going to take this Bible and what application does this thing that is rooted in context and history. There is a context in history in which he is speaking to these crowds and these people, these students. But then also, if we're going to read it as a religious text, not just as a story that happened a long time ago, we do need to at some point say, well, what is that in our time? What would that be like today? Who would he be talking to? It's like, I don't think he'd be talking to Jewish leaders. I think he'd be talking to, hey, people on the internet, who say you have Christian in your bio. Interesting. Right. Yeah.
Hey, people, podcast hosts, people doing Bible translations, and
I see you have pastor on your resume. Let me give you a word. So that's what I think is who we're addressing here.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything from you, Brandon?
Yeah. I really appreciate, Jenna, that insight that, if this is a religious text, we need to be hearing it as a word to incarnate in us as well. It is easy for me to first read it as a history tale and then read it as a big poke in the eyes of evangelicalism and MAGA Christianity. And I can make those pokes, but it ultimately needs to be how is it going to form me to not be inhabiting the same problematic kinds of religion that some of his contemporaries were lurching into. His anger, I hear, in his sharpness, I hear as that sense of our harshest words are those for those in family, right? For those closest to us. And he freaking unloads that sense of I am so, I feel in myself so much more anger at the evangelical church, not just because it hurt me, and I think it does so many of the worst things, but also out of this sense of like, I was rooting for you. I have tried. I have been well formed in some ways by this world, and you are not completing the motion of like, trust Jesus, then practice nonviolence, like, and on it goes. Like, I just want you to actually take what you believe seriously. The things you told me to do, fucking do them. I hear that kind of anger that I'm letting come out of myself. I'm hearing some of that in him. And yeah, having scholars of the first century be able to say, yeah, he was probably like closest of all the different flavors of Judaism to Phariseeism. He's speaking with passion for those who are getting a lot of good insights. Particularly, I mean, like Brandon said, they were a grassroots movement. They are closer to the people suffering, and yet they are like missing the mark of like, nope, this is that listening and learning is where you should be bending towards solidarity and liberation, not scapegoating and these other things that some of them apparently did. So yeah, I'm grateful for that sense of like, I want to be hearing this today as like, okay, how can whatever Jesus is getting pissed off about also be something that is in me? Because the authoritarian and like palace priest instinct, I think, is in all of us, in every Christianity.
Yeah.
And I want the Spirit to be purging that from me.
Well, shall we read some of this and see what else we can find?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
So then Jesus spoke to the crowds and his students. The Bible scholars and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, so pay attention to whatever they tell you and do it. You see, they say things, but don't do them. They secure heavy loads hard to carry and put them on people's shoulders, but they aren't willing to lift a finger to move them. They do their actions so that people will notice them. They display their phylacteries and tassels prominently. They care about the spot for the highest status guests at dinners, the seat of honor in the synagogues, elaborate greetings of respect in public, and having people call them my great one. But you shouldn't be called my great one. There's one teacher for all of you, and you are all fellow students. And you shouldn't call an earthly authority your father, because there's one divine Father for all of you. Nor should you be called leader, because the Messiah is your one leader. Your servants will be the most impressive among you. So whoever elevates themselves will be brought low, and whoever accepts a lower position will be elevated. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Can you elaborate on that translation for my great one?
Yeah. So where we get the English word rabbi is from the Aramaic rabbi, which literally translates to something like my great one. And it was a title of address that you would use to teachers and Pharisees when you addressed them. And so like, I think it's in John or maybe it's Mark. I know somewhere else it says rabbi, which means teacher. Sort of. It's what you call a teacher, but it doesn't literally translate to teacher.
Okay.
But they wanted that title of respect. I played around with like Your Excellency or something like that. It's like that's too much. But
yeah, not quite as academic as professor or doctor, but more less humorous than sensei.
Oh, yeah, right.
You're somewhere between.
Yeah.
Sorry, fandom. I also did not know what the word phylactery meant, and I definitely thought it was grosser than it was. So it's just a little container.
I can understand why. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, isn't that the container for the guts when they mummify someone? But maybe that's something else.
Yeah.
I thought that's what a phylactery was. Or maybe like in D&D where the lich has, like the wizard has his soul in a body or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Why did I think
Lich
that's
King
what a
keeps its
phylactery
heart
was?
in one, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. I was like, I feel like there was something
least in
about
Baldur's Gate
body
3.
organs. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
When I hear flat, I hear, ooh, that's gross. But no, it's just a little container that they have Bible verses, and they would like put them on their heads really big, and they would like tie them to be shown. Like this, you really want it to be seen that, like, look, he has the word of God literally on his forehead. So I thought that was a little silly in today's fashion. Not something I would necessarily see. I would not put it past Instagram and TikTok to come up with that. Trad life content.
Yes.
That's a very big trad life content there. But I do think that that seems like it looks a little silly to us today until we look at like, oh, I definitely have worn a WWJD bracelet in my life.
Yes.
Exactly.
I had the
That's a
embarrassing
great
bumper
equivalent.
sticker. Yeah. Who else had the embarrassing bumper stickers on their car? Like, smile, God loves you.
Oh yeah. When I
I
was
had the
in
t-shirt.
middle school, I was the Christian t-shirt
Yes.
king. Like over half my wardrobe was like Christian puns.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not lucky.
I
I'm
had
saved.
the Jesus fish eating the Darwin fish T-shirt.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, a breadcrumb fish. That's a classic. So definitely had the Lucky Brand jeans logo with "I'm not lucky, I'm saved." That was my phylactery for you.
Yes.
My tassels.
Oh man.
I had some.
There was
tassels.
one that I was so excited to get. I ordered it from Breakaway magazine. If you know what that is, Girls was the equivalent was Brio, and it was
a
picture of Jesus with his hands bound in the crown of thorns and all that, and then said the text was saving the whole world with both hands tied behind his back. I was like, I have to have this. Yeah.
Like a T-shirt of a guy getting lynched for a pun.
Yep.
I mean, we're recording this on the first or second day of like learning about all of the people selling merch for the alligator Alcatraz thing in Florida.
Yeah,
Auschwitz.
alligator Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's terrible.
So evangelicalism has been practicing this for a while.
Yeah, and
This
I
is
think
true.
there's a whole disconnect between the things that we put on our bodies and have as our decorations that everybody knows that about us, versus like what we actually do and like seeking that respect in public and these high seats of honor and winning awards and all that. I think we can all do that a little bit. If somebody's walking around with a free mom hug shirt and ally and, rainbows and everything, and then they're going, oh, but I just don't know if I can go to an affirming church because they just don't take the Bible seriously. And it's like, okay, but like you're wearing a shirt that says, I kind of expected something different from you. Or like, well, that's what my friends are, or that's my reputation, or I can't get a book deal if I come out as an ally, or, these things that there's a lot of that we face. And, even among other queer people, there's people who are putting heavy burdens on other queer Christians or, around whether they can transition or whether they can be in a relationship, whether they can get ordained, whether they can have sex. Like there's a lot of these rules around these heavy burdens. And then you might notice that they don't particularly help out in any way. It's just, well, you're a sign of the broken, sinful world. And so living in loneliness, whatever. And they'll be like, oh no, it's an honor. It's a status, it's like, oh no, like you are called to celibacy. That's so holy. But no one ever actually prays like, I hope that my son just breaks so many little boys' hearts because he's faithful to God's word and stays celibate. It's like nobody's saying, I hope my daughter's a lesbian so she can be set apart for the Lord. Like, people don't say that. They don't say that. They don't say like, oh, actually, I never saved for a marriage because I was really hoping, like, it's disappointing me that my little daughter found a man to marry, because I was really kind of hoping you'd choose a better path than that and be devoted to the Lord. It's like they're not doing those things. And so it's like they're putting these burdens on people and being like, well, you can't do this and you can't do this and you can only do this and this and the circumstance and but then like the actual application of those things is not the fruit of the Spirit. It's not leading people to life and to goodness and to joy and to greater love and community. It's making people isolated and alone and feeling like they are an embodiment of sin in the world, or that their suffering is supposed to earn them something in heaven that's capitalistic and material, like a crown or a throne or something.
The worst.
So,
Yeah.
Jewel on the crown.
Yes, exactly. Like, no, that's capitalism. That's not heaven. That's not how heaven works. And I just don't see a lot of people being willing to speak out about that as much as I kind of am like, I have to say something because I am a celibate Christian, but it's because I'm asexual. And so, there's a lot of the burden part that we're putting all of these rules on people for purity culture reasons. That just, it really infuriates me. But not because I personally want to have sex, I don't, but because I see the path of liberation deviating one way and the path of these burdens this on another way, where they have their phylacteries and their tassels and they have their high spots at dinner, and it's all about status and reputation and who's, super pure and all these things. And, I'm so pure, I didn't even hold hands with my husband till my wedding day,
Right,
it's just like, what? Like, why are we doing this,
These weird pissing matches. It's like, guys,
exactly.
just chill the fuck out.
Exactly. So that's one thing that I really come to this, or is not really about like, oh, you shouldn't call your dad, like don't call an earthly authority your father. It's like, it's about authority. And that is really weird considering something that happened just last week. People want us to call Trump daddy. And I thought that was really weird.
I hadn't heard that one. No.
What?
I was waiting for somebody to pick it up, and y'all were like, what are you talking
about?
Wait,
No,
what?
it's literally there of like, well, daddy has to come discipline the other nations who are in conflict, and you need to put Iran in timeout. And it's like daddy is going to come get you and give you punishment. And it speaks a lot to how we view children in this culture, or, how the U.S. was the only one not to sign on to the UN's resolution to protect children. And so like, there's constantly, there's a lot about like how we treat children as disobedient and they need to conform to the standard. And there's a lot of that parenting dynamic there in the like, don't call an earthly father your father, because there's this such like, you are a grown person, like you do not need, and these countries have been around thousands of millennia before we ever got here. It's just the level of arrogance and level of ego to think that, oh yeah, I want people to call me father. I want entire nations to think of me as the world's daddy. Like I don't have words. I don't have words.
There are
how
no
gross
words.
This is.
Yeah.
But especially when it's spelled out clearly in scripture, like this is a literal verse that is in the Bible that they claim to love and worship. So that's really where I got to verse 9 and my head exploded.
That seems appropriate.
Holy crap. I remember coming out of a seminary class and some fella being like, and I just don't understand how the Catholics can read this, and it says right there, don't call people father, and they just call people. It's like anachronism much, but also like read it for what it's actually saying. And like,
it's not the word that's the problem, it's how it puts
bingo
some people in factions following this person versus that person, rather than this sense of unity that we're all in this together, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Protestant in a denomination led by an entire council of people, so I can't really say like, yay, Pope, but I'm not really like
it's not my favorite concept, but
exactly.
But that's not what this is about.
Right. That's not what's going on here. It's that like, if the Messiah is your leader, the servants are the most impressive among you. If Jesus is the one you are actually following, whoever elevates themselves will be brought low, and whoever accepts a lower position will be elevated. You don't have to worry about fighting for status and, the fake evolution, not actual Darwinianism. But it's like, we think that we have to have this survival of the fittest, that you compete for resources, scarcity culture, shame culture is wrapped up in scarcity culture. Like all of this inability to be vulnerable, this intolerance of vulnerability is what's getting us to this point in society as an entire planet. And
Yes.
we are really struggling with this because we don't trust that passive voice is going to happen. That if you accept a lower position, you will be elevated, instead of if you accept a lower position, you have to fight to get the status and somebody to call you king. And that's not what life is about. It's not about
No.
becoming king of the hill or becoming the most powerful man in town, or,
Yeah.
people like,
So
when
many
might have
people
said,
pursue that, though. It's like,
yes,
yeah, it's just like everywhere.
Yeah, we've become
it's trust.
so deeply, profoundly, proudly drunk on this pyramid paradigm of reality, not just our culture, but like down to the individual, where our worth is determined by our social and then of course God is the big dude with the biggest stick up at the top of the pyramid, and that is a cosmos that I can't call beautiful.
Yeah, and the mountain just keeps getting bigger every time you try to climb it. So it's like, oh, well, I have 4,000 followers, so that makes me the biggest asexual Christian on the internet. And then it's like, okay, but then like, if I really wanted to, speak at a conference or publish a book or something, I really need 20,000 followers. And if I really wanted to, if I wanted to not only publish a book, but also have that book succeed, then I need to have all of these Substack. And it's just like, it grows and grows and grows and grows. And whether you're on TikTok or, book publishing or a professor somewhere or whatever your title and your job is, there's always this bigger, higher mountain that you get to the part where you're going like, well, Taylor Swift's album only sold this many things, when actually, like, it's like, okay, you can be the biggest thing in the world selling more than anyone else, and there's still going to be something out there that people say, well, it wasn't quite good enough. It wasn't quite what we expected.
Right.
The QPI and the performance, the return on investment. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, it never ends. Capitalism never ends. And it's just such a huge part of the church too, that unless your church is growing every year, you're not succeeding. And it's like, that's literally not possible. Like, there's a finite number of people who live in your town. Like,
Right.
Yeah,
you're going to get the
perpetual
percent of
growth is
people
the
that want.
ideology of a cancer cell.
Yes.
It will kill the host, and that's
Yes.
also of capitalism.
Yeah. But if we're accepting this lower position, maybe we're saying our goal, instead of growing our church, is to contribute more and more money to elevating the people in our town until homelessness is eradicated. It's like, oh, like that is a goal that we can actually work on. And that is a goal that doesn't have a finite number of, people who have to, you keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's like, that's just not the reality of what can happen.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
Right.
But like, I mean, it's the wisdom of that letter that Jeremiah writes to the exiles, right? Like, seek the flourishing of the city you're in, the watershed, whatever, and you'll find your own flourishing
Right.
in that journey. Like,
Right.
but if you put it backwards, you're playing the Pharaoh game.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of this reflects back to, Jesus knows scripture like really well. So, a lot of this in
Very
here,
well. Yeah.
right? Like, we don't have to just say, oh, it's like Isaiah that gives a hint of who Jesus was going to be and the Messiah and all these things. It's like he's talking about the word Messiah, but actually, to me, he's reflecting a lot of these Old Testament prophets, where you see like Amos and all of these.
Yeah.
Micah,
he quotes
is what
them,
it comes from.
especially in Matthew, right and left, constantly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's not about like the sacrifices. Like, what I want is to love justice and mercy. Like, it's all of this over and over and over through the years. So obviously, who are we to think that we are over it by now? Because clearly we are not. We're just getting worse and worse at this.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But then also like looking forward to Paul talking about like Paul, whoever is writing this, actually,
Somebody.
in reality.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote this. It says like, unless you have love, it's all just clanging cymbals. And I just see so much of that in here about the performance of religion instead of the actual experience of religion. What is it doing in your life? Is it giving you the elevation of your low position, or are you seeking elevation in society and status and reputation and being popular and influencer clicks and blah blah blah? So
let's take another saying from Jesus here.
Yeah, another little chunk.
Yeah.
You'd better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees, because you shut the entrance to the heavenly reign in people's faces. In fact, you neither enter nor release others to enter. You'd better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees, because you wander dry places and see to recruit one new follower. And when someone joins, you make them twice the child of the Hinnom Valley as you. Word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. He's kind of got that preacher's vibe going, like, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees. You better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees. It's good
What
repetition.
I'm laughing about, you make them twice the child of the Hinnom Valley as you. It's like, they're even worse. It's like, my God, I have met those people. Like, oh my goodness, I have definitely seen those people. It's like the freshly converted. It's like, man, is there anything worse?
My gosh. Yeah.
The arrogance.
You gotta be on fire, right?
Right, yeah.
Oh,
or the first year seminary student, the
oh
college
my
student who
gosh.
goes, oh my gosh, we were so full of those in my college churches. We would go home and be like, well, all of you are doing this wrong, We went to one semester at this college ministry, and now we know everything there is about real spirituality.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh, it's terrible.
Oh, I was so sure that's what I was supposed to be. But it turns out, in terms of parts of the body of Christ, asshole is not one of them.
Right.
Oh boy. Yep.
I had to learn.
Yeah.
People
And
had to notify me of that.
Yeah. The super sad thing is it really is shutting the entrance to heavenly reign in people's faces. I know so many people who've deconverted because how they have been treated. And like 100% of the time, it is other Christians who have said terrible things to them. It was never like an atheist came in and said, I actually have some points that I got from Richard Dawkins. It's like, that wasn't it. It was the people who were in the churches going like, well, we want to love you, but like God's discipline and, or like, oh, you're so precious, whatever. It's not ever true love that gets them in. It's the fake love. And it's not necessarily another path that gets them out. It's the hate that comes through with this fakery. So I think a lot of hypocrisy has driven more people from the church than any other religious conversion effort ever has.
100%.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier what's it called? Like, have to exclude the exclusive people in order to maintain an inclusive society. Like, I think that's reflected here in fact, you neither enter nor release others to enter. It's like, by the very fact that you are an exclusive person, you're keeping yourself out of this thing. That, like, there's no way to be exclusive and be part of it at the same time.
And they wander dry places and see.
Yeah.
Don't really need a metaphor. They're still literally doing that. So,
yeah.
Yep, heading everywhere. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, what this conjures for me is like Genesis 1, like the tohu vavohu in Hebrew, the wild and waste, or formless and void. Lots of different ways to play with translating that. But it's kind of like these places, the extremes of uninhabitable, dangerous places, right?
Yeah.
And they're willing to do all of that to make someone even worse than they are, right?
Yeah, that is, it's within the tradition, a very compelling image. Like, you go to the dry places. That's where the place of exile is. That's where the place of wandering and not knowing where the promised land is. You send them to the sea. That's the place of primal chaos and abandonment from God. Like, the sea is the cosmic antagonist in Judaism. Of those times, and you send them even there. He's speaking in the, like, you send them to Mordor, right? He's speaking out of that kind of mythos of the of his tradition, and then ... and make them twice the son, the child of the Hinnom Valley, as you.
which it just struck me as like you're talking about the dry places being like the wilderness and the exile, and the sea being like, is that the Hinnom Valley is evokes very similar image, but it's within Israel. It's within Palestine. It's that place where people doing these kinds of things, playing the pyramid games, led to slaughter and destruction and death, where corpses were left unburied because there were just too many to take care of. And that's the imagery that's being called on for like what they're leading toward.
Let's do another
It
chunk.
got heavy. Yeah.
Here I was just thinking it was sparkling colonization. Yeah. I was just thinking sparkling colonization. And, and now piles of bodies. Okay.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, like, what would the crowd have heard? Like, if Jesus says the word Hinnom Valley, what would that have meant to them? But that's a good explanation. Thank you.
Yeah. It's coming from references to things that happened there in Jeremiah, where violence and arrogance leads to weirdly more violence and arrogance that comes back on you.
Surprise.
Yeah. Let's go on the next one. You'd better watch out, blind guides who say, whoever swears by the temple, that's nothing. But whoever swears by the gold of the temple, they owe what they swear. You're short-sighted, unable to see what's right in front of you. Which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say, whoever swears on the altar, that's nothing. But whoever swears on the offering on top of it, they owe what they swear. You don't see the truth. What's more important, the offering or the altar that makes the offering sacred? Therefore, a person who swears by the altar swears on it, and everything placed on it. Whoever swears on the temple swears on it, and on the one who dwells within it. A person who swears on the heavens swears on God's throne, and on the one who sits on it.
Very culturally specific examples, Jesus.
Very culturally specific. What did come to mind as I was reading through this earlier was the connection of Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talking about swearing oaths then too. And basically just saying, don't do it. Just stop it. Like, you don't actually have control over this stuff. Like, what? You can't change the color of the hairs on your head or whatever else images he uses there. Just like, stop trying to grab control over other people and other things.
And that's really the heart of what swearing is. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're going to try to like connect to something important, at least connect with what's actually important. And the gold is not it.
Yeah.
You'd better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees, because you give an offering of 1/10 of your mint, dill, and cumin while dismissing the weighty things of Torah, justice, compassion, and faithfulness. It's essential to do these things without neglecting the others. Blind guides, you strain out gnats, but drink down a camel.
Yeah, that just, it's so straight out of the line of prophets that Jesus, like, I think you've heard this all before, but say it again.
Yep.
You're scholars of this Bible, and yet, here you go, you're doing it too. So big fan of mint, dill, and cumin. Great choices there for offerings, but the important part was the justice, compassion, and faithfulness. And again, clanging cymbals is like you kind of just don't have anything else unless you have those. I see a lot of people dismissing justice, compassion, and faithfulness as important. And unfortunately, the majority of the people on the side of that are putting Christian in their bio. I think that that's, really important to realize that just because you tithe, just because you sit in a church, like else you say is like, just because you go to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. Or like that. And there's a lot of people.
Or a hamburglar.
Yes. There's a lot of people sitting in churches waiting to become a hamburger, and you're just not going to be. It's just not who you are, because you're acting in ways that are not justice, compassion, and faithfulness, even if you are giving 1/10 of your income, even if you are funding all these things and wearing a t-shirt and, you know, recruiting people to your VBS or whatever. It's not about that. If you're, you know, drinking down a camel, who cares that you're straightening out the gnats?
Right. Yep.
These two verses were in the top like 2 or 3 of, as I went from growing up being really into apologetics and finding rules or hallucinating rules in the Bible at times.
Oh, okay.
And doing, what did Kaylee Hargrove call it? Bibliomancy, you know, the...
Oh, yeah.
That's how I read my Bible. And then I was in college and actually read the thing and got to this and like kind of had to walk around the block because it's so piercing.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't this is like the Rubicon in the Bible for me. It's like once I kind of got past this, I couldn't really go back to other ways of hearing the story. Somehow I managed to get the first 22 and a half chapters in Matthew and all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I could like dismiss or like be blind to it. But it's like, so like, hey, McFly, do you get it? I needed that kind of forcefulness to really begin to get jolted out of the like, the pissing matches and the like win-lose pyramid games, the scarcity games,
right,
like you said, Jenna, of like reading the Bible to win. Not the goal. Not the goal.
No.
So I'm very grateful that the early church remembered him saying this and put it in.
Yeah. It was a pivotal moment for you. Yeah, you missed some stuff. Like, he does talk about, like, I want compassion, not sacrifice, right? Like, but yeah, the force here is, it does force you to kind of pick which side of the line you're going to be on.
Yeah. Well, just to come back to the anti-Semitism point of, like, this is literally Jesus saying, the Torah says justice, compassion, and faithfulness. And so you can't go back and say, well, the God of the Old Testament, you know, it's like, no, like, Jesus is literally saying, the Torah says justice, compassion, and faithfulness. And so, I think there's, you know, plenty to critique as far as the Old Testament also being fallible and human. It's not just Paul, but it's, you know, it's not just the most recent that might have a little bit of, you know, imperfection in the person writing it. But also, like, this is Jesus saying, like, you guys should know this stuff, and I'm just repeating stuff that you claim to be an expert in. So that's really important here too.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't say the dill and the cumin and the mint don't matter. You should do that. Keep doing that. Like, he's not saying the rest of the Torah doesn't matter at all. Only this. For him, like, Judaism is the full thing, but if you got to pick one, it's going to be these this justice and mercy thing.
God also finds your seasonings delicious.
Yes. It is an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Yeah, like, God, like, the temple is such a big, like, family barbecue that God had to give seasoning recommendations. Like, actually, you know what would make this smell even better?
Just have a little cumin. Yeah.
Cumin.
Add a little dill to the offering. That's
great. Oh, you're bringing the fish in? Oh, get the dill. You guys are you're going to love it.
We got to have some mint on that. I love it.
I'll move on to the next one here. See what else we can find. You better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees, because you clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are robbery and devoid of self-restraint. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup, so that the outside can also get clean. You'd better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees, because you're like tombs with plaster exteriors, which look beautiful on the outside, but inside they're full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. Just like them, you appear to people like you're committed to doing everything right, yet inside you're full of play acting and lack Torah. Another heavy one.
Yeah, first clean the inside of the cup. I just think of that every time I pass a church that's I know is not affirming. I know that there's white supremacy happening because I know the people who go there, and I know that they're serving in prominent positions in the secular government, and doing some of that in the name of the Lord, and also the famous people, like the Michael Tates and the all the people who are out there being like, yeah, you're inviting people in to worship God and you're bringing people in to try to convert them to your religion. But the inside of the cup is just like full on Jesus braiding a whip. Like, let's get the temple cleansed. Like, it's got to happen, because if you're not ready to invite people in, how on earth are you going to be a safe place for them? And I've been working on that, like in my workplace of, they came to us and HR said, we would love to have more diverse talent. We really value that. We think that's important. And we're not reaching out to things like, how can we reach more LGBTQ recruits? And we said, honestly, you got to actually do the work first. And this has to be a healthy place for LGBTQ people to work. And then once we've gotten that done, now we can go out and recruit people and go to the job fairs. And I think the same is true of the church, is if you are trying to go to Pride and apologize for Christians and, hug people and hand out your church stuff, like, don't go until your church is actually a safe place, until you have that. If you're going to have a trans person come into your church and they're going to misgender them or ask rude questions about their genitals, like, you've got to figure that stuff out first before you make it an outreach. Or, all these churches that are trying to go out into interracial neighborhoods to prove they're not racist. And it's like, no, figure it out. Like, you got to work on the anti-racist stuff first, and then maybe you'll discover that there's a lot of other stuff you're doing wrong too. Just saying. But it's like, if you don't clean that up first, why on earth are you going out there and trying to, have people invited in, because you're just tombs with plaster exteriors that look beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of dead and unclean things.
Yeah.
Just gross.
Rainbow washed tombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that different than all the corporations putting rainbows on all their logos and stuff in June, and then
Pride capitalism.
The rest of the year disappears. Yep.
Yeah, and donating to politicians that are taking away our human rights.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, this theme of just a basic sense of truthfulness and consistency is so, like, get the feeling Jesus has been shadowboxing some of these things for a while and distilling and discerning, and, like, the bullshit inherent in the system is what he's calling out so much of, is the two-facedness, the play acting, the pious, and the with a boot on the on the neck of somebody. That, what is it? Who was it? Stanley Hauerwas said, like, Christian ethics can be summarized as do not lie. And that, however true that is, I feel it here, where Jesus is circling round and round and around. Be not full of shit.
Yeah.
Live truthfully.
That's how I should translate this in the next edition. Inside you're full of bones that ate and shit.
And shit. And other shit.
Well, that's why I was not entirely opposed to having the 10 Commandments in Texas schools, because, my God, imagine if you put those on the wall and then little children come to you and say, but you said thou shalt not lie. I thought you said. Not ever for religion in schools, but also, like, it kind of would be ironic if you were reminded what they are.
Yeah.
Have you not read?
They're not bad rules.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you get all us evangelicals, is that, we all took it seriously, what we were taught growing up, and all of a sudden we're disappointed with our elders who apparently are just ready to let it all go.
Yeah, the 10 Commandments are not there as a actual moral guide. They are there as a flag of domination.
Right.
And They were originally put there, not just in schools, but all over America in, like the statues of it all over America. Do you know the origin story on this? In the as a year-long promotional leading up to Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments movie.
What?
It was a Hollywood promotional long play to get people like, oh yeah, the Ten Commandments are really holy and shit to us, like it's in our town square. Genius and sick. And now we have all these people like, we're forsaking our tradition and all these things that America is founded upon. It's like, it's fucking capitalism, baby.
I mean, yeah, all the things America's founded on.
Yeah, our religion.
Yeah.
So there's your fun facts with Brandon.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, it's getting even more fun down here. Yeah. You'd better watch out, fakers, Bible scholars, and Pharisees, because you build tombs for prophets and decorate the tombstones of those who live justly. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have participated in the shedding of the blood of the prophets. Therefore you testify against yourselves that you are heirs of those who murdered the prophets. You might as well complete the legacy of your ancestors. Snakes, children of vipers, how could you escape from the justice enacted in the Hinnom Valley? Pay attention. This is why I'm sending you prophets, teachers of wisdom, and Bible scholars. You will crucify and kill some of them, and some of them you'll whip in your synagogues and hunt them from town to town, which would bring on you all the blood of those who lived justly, that was shed in the land, from the blood of Abel, who lived justly, until the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Honestly, I'm telling you, all these things will come to bear on this group. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those who are sent to you. I've wanted for so long to gather your children together like a hen gathers her chicks together under her wings. But you didn't want it. Look around. Your household is abandoned to be desolate. You see, I'm telling you, you won't see me at all from now until you say, praised be the one who comes representing the Lord.
You can tell he knows. Yeah, he knows. And you can see it in there. He's not using first person pronouns, but he knows he's going to be killed by them. And they're going to fulfill the murders of, you might as well complete the legacy. And yeah, it was Rome that actually did the killing, but there are the theobros of this, time are coming in saying, yeah, you're gonna die for this. And he's not afraid to say, listen, you guys are snakes. And he has a backbone, and he has the ability to say, this is wrong and you have to stop, even though he knows that's not going to happen. And he's willing to say, we don't, he's not getting in there being like, well, we got to compromise to get anything done. He's over here being like, this is why I'm sending you all of these prophets and the teachers of wisdom and the biblical scholars. And that's interesting. He said, I as in God has sent the prophets. And he's like, I sent these prophets. And they'll crucify and kill some of them. And some of them you'll whip in your synagogues and hunt from town to town. And that's coming. That we see the Acts of the Apostles. We see stoning and crucifixion and more coming over and over from town to town throughout the region. And I just think it's interesting that making the God claim of I'm sending you prophets is what ends up being his downfall and the thing they can't accept about him. That he's not just a Messiah, he's not just a zealot, he's not just another teacher, but he's saying, I sent Moses, I sent these guys out here to tell you what to do. And you keep hunting down my people. And all of this is the people who live justly, and all this blood that has been shed, that's on you. God, that's a pretty intense way to make the God claim.
Yeah, absolutely.
No kidding. Yeah, it's not just some metaphysical, like, booyah. It's this very concrete claim of, I am the energy that has been wooing and pulling and pressing and pleading for you. to live as a community of mercy. And you slit our throats.
Yeah, exactly. And God, I can't help but just make that metaphor today of all of the queer prophets. You know, you think about like, oh, well, the church versus the queer people, but Marsha P. Johnson is like the founder of what we call Pride. And she's, you know, the one we lift up as this figurehead along with many others. But there was a whole community of these people who mainly were trans women of color, as well as other women of color, other, you know, people who were solidly rooted in especially BIPOC church traditions, Catholicism and the Black church, and, you know, all of these things all the way down through ACT UP. We're seeing this in the AIDS crisis of people having to go into these churches and say, like, you guys are killing us and we are you, like, we are your children. We are your prophets. And we are trying to come in and tell you, this is a theology of death. You are worshiping the death cult, the God of death. And I am here in that legacy with this baton still being handed down to me, that I am proclaiming, hey, this is a theology of death. This is a death cult. We're continually becoming servants of a death cult, that we are worshiping as an idol instead of God. And people don't want to hear that. But
they do not.
You know, we keep going. We keep, whether you're talking about Martin Luther King, whether you're talking about Marsha, whether you're talking about, you know, like Cesar Chavez, like, I mean, we've got, like, you know, it's like, I can start naming off all these liberation leaders, but like, we're killing these prophets. And even like this month, Jennifer Lyle of the Southern Baptist Convention died of multiple strokes, like an unbelievable amount of strokes. And she knew, she wrote to her friends before that in the publishing industry and said, this is going to kill me, because her fallout from speaking out against the sexual abuse that was happening in the Southern Baptist Convention had so taken that toll on her life that the stress was literally killing her, and she knew it. And she would joke to friends and write and say, they're going to be the end of me. This is not, I'm not going to survive this. And I see that here with what Jesus is saying, is Jesus is saying the same thing that Jennifer Lyle says of, this is going to kill me. And so help me if it does, I'm still going to say, I'm sending you prophets. I'm sending you things. I'm trying to gather you, Jerusalem, under my wings as a mother. I love the mother Jesus, the gender way of doing this is, you know, this pan-gender God who says, like, Jesus the mother gathering us all as chicks under his wings. But we keep killing these prophets over and over, women and disabled people and, you know, BIPOC people and trans people, like all of over and over and over, who are just trying to make us better and help us and bring us back to the love of God and the compassion and the justice and the faithfulness that's the heart of Torah. And so I think a lot of these people fall in the lineage of Jesus in ways that we have completely dismissed as a, quote, Christian community.
Amen. Yeah.
Let's conclude there. Thank you for that. The timeliness of this is aching. Thank you, everybody, for your company on this leg of the journey. Thank you, Jenna, for sharing your wisdom and story with us today. The easiest way to support Found in Translation is to leave us a rating or review on whatever app or player you've been enjoying this on, especially YouTube and Apple Podcasts. That helps more people connect with these conversations and this project. You can find us on Facebook as Found in Translation. You can read the Liberation and Inclusion translation at www.litbible.net and follow its development on Threads as @lit.bible. You can follow Brandon Johnson on BlueSky as @litbible.net. You can follow me on Threads or BlueSky as @BDRhodes. Jenna, what's the best way for people to find you and what you're up to?
Yeah, well, you can hear some less intense, poems, and I have essays, but most of all, I have resource lists. at Invisible Cake Society. Why is it Invisible Cake? Well, asexual people often joke that we like cake more than sex, so that is one way the cake came in. It's also just a cute name. And it's also that we all share because it's a society, but in particular it's indivisible because we have seen erasure. It's not passing, it's erasure. It's not privilege, it's erasure. That like so many experiences, whether you're talking about asexuality and aromanticism or queer Christianity or neurodivergence, disability, often we are erased from society and people think of us as invisible. So the Invisible Cake Society is for everyone who thinks of themselves as, not seen. So please go to invisiblecakesociety.com or find it on Substack for resources to help you if you're a queer Christian, to help you if you're asexual, they can have affirming theology resources. I have resource lists for lots of different things, lots of helpful stuff there. I'm grateful to all of those people who have created those. I did not create all these resources. I am simply curating them and putting them in a list that is easy and well organized for you to be able to find. So also find me at Jenna DeWitt on Threads and on BlueSky.
Awesome. Thank you very much. The music you're listening to is by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Founding Translation was produced on unceded Chinook and Kalapuya land. Goodbye, Brandon.
Bye, Brandon.
Bye, Jenna. Bye, everybody.